ZilckSound.
You're tuned into ZilckSound, where business gets real, trends get broken down, and you walk away sharper than when you hit play. Brought to you by Zilck.com. Practical news for the modern entrepreneur. Now, here's your host, Rob Henley.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ZilckSound. Thank you for listening to us again. Tonight, we speak about mentorships, and this won't end with a link to my coaching program, I promise. We're not doing that. This isn't about whether mentorship matters. It does. This isn't about whether coaches can help. Some can. This is about what happens when an entire industry builds itself around a promise it was never designed to keep. The promise is simple. Pay this amount, follow the system, and someone who's already figured it out will show you the way. The promise is that the shortcut exists, that someone else's map works for your terrain, that the confusion you're feeling right now, the late night doubt, the feeling that everyone else got a manual you didn't, can be solved by proximity to someone who seems to have solved it already. Here's what it actually is. I was 21 the first time someone tried to sell me mentorship. Not offer it, sell it. There's a difference. I was at a conference, bad coffee, worse lighting, you name it. The kind of event where everyone's name tag has their LinkedIn headline printed slightly too small. A man whose title I've since forgotten, something with growth and architect in it. Guy gave a talk about scaling. It was fine, competent, the kind of talk that sounds insightful until you try to apply it to anything real. Afterward, he mentioned he offered one-on-one mentorship, limited spots, significant investment. The phrasing was careful. Investment in yourself, bet on your future, unlock your potential. Nice words all along. And I remember sitting there, 21 years old, feeling genuinely stuck, genuinely confused, genuinely convinced that what I was missing was access. If I could just get in the room with someone who'd already done it, the brain fog, everything would clear. I didn't sign up, not because I was smart, because I couldn't afford it. And in the years since, watching that same dynamic play out across every platform, across masterminds, across the endless carousel of I help founders scale bios, I've realized something that 21-year-old version of me couldn't yet articulate. The thing I was actually hungry for wasn't a system. It was proof that the confusion I felt was normal, that the uncertainty was part of the process, not evidence that I was doing it wrong. What I needed wasn't someone charging by the hour to tell me their story. What I needed was someone who'd sit across from me and say, I don't know either. Here's what I tried. Here's what broke. Keep going. That conversation never came with a pricing page. The mentorship industry, and it is an industry now with revenue, with funnels, with affiliate programs, has a structural problem it cannot acknowledge because acknowledging it would collapse the business model. The problem is that real mentorship and paid mentorship run on completely opposite incentives. Real mentorship is organic. It grows out of shared work, shared context, and someone watching you closely enough to see what you need versus what you think you need. It's slow, it's messy, it doesn't scale. The best mentors I've ever had never called themselves mentors. They were just people further along who cared enough to tell me the truth when I needed to hear it, usually for free, usually over coffee, usually in conversations I didn't realize were mentorship until years later. Paid mentorship, the kind with a sales page, a discovery call, and a payment plan, runs on a different logic entirely. The person paying you is also the person you're accountable to, and that changes everything. Because now the incentive isn't to tell them what's true. The incentive is to keep them paying, to make them feel like they're progressing, to package insight in ways that feel valuable, even when the real work of the ugly, slow, non-linear work of building something can't be packaged at all. Of course, Zilck has written about this. The professionalization of mentorship didn't expand access to wisdom. It expanded access to people who are good at selling the feeling of being mentored. Those are not the same thing. Let me give you two pictures. One real, one you've seen 100 times probably. The real one, a designer I know, early 30s, running her own studio for about 4 years. 2 years ago, she hit a wall. Growth flat, creative energy gone, considering walking away from the whole thing. She didn't join a mastermind. She didn't hire a coach. She called a former creative director she'd worked under 8 years earlier, someone who knew her work, knew her weaknesses, knew when she was making excuses versus when she was genuinely stuck. He didn't give her a framework. He didn't send her a Notion template. He asked her 3 questions over a 90-minute call and then said, you already know the answer. You just don't want to admit it because it means letting go of the client you're scared to fire. That was the mentorship. It cost nothing. It changed everything. She fired the client. The studio turned around, and if you ask her now, she'll tell you the same thing. The value wasn't in the advice. It was in the fact that he knew her well enough to call her on her own rationalizations. Now the other picture, the one you've seen, the LinkedIn post with the professional headshot and the bullet point results, I helped 47 founders scale past 7 figures. The testimonial carousel, the limited spots, the urgency, the promise that for $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, you can buy access to clarity. I'm not saying these programs never deliver anything. That's not the argument. The argument is that the transaction itself changes the relationship. When mentorship becomes a product, the mentor's job is no longer truth-telling. It's retention. And retention requires making the client feel like they're getting value, which is not the same thing as actually being valuable. A real mentor tells you things you don't want to hear. A paid mentor must balance that with making sure you sign up for another quarter. Here's what's actually underneath this, and this is the part that stays underground. The mentorship economy grew because we stopped trusting our own judgment. That's the wound. The industry just found a way to sell bandages. At some point in the last decade, we collectively decided that the answer to entrepreneurial uncertainty was external validation. Someone who'd already done it could tell us how we can do it. Someone with more followers, more revenue, a better exit could hand us the map, and the industry rushed in to fill that gap with pricing tiers. But here's what I've observed across 15 years of watching people build real things. The founders who make it aren't the ones who bought the best mentorship. They're the ones who developed the ability to sit with uncertainty long enough to find their own answers. Believing that somewhere out there is a person who can remove the confusion for you is heavy stuff. Someone who can make the path clear. Someone who's already done it and can just tell you how. The real deal, that person doesn't exist. Not because successful people are stingy with their knowledge, but because their path was specific to their timing, their context, their specific constellation of luck, skill, and circumstance. Their map won't work for your terrain, not because the map is bad, because the terrain is different and it always will be. What real mentors do, the ones worth finding, isn't give you a map. It's teaching you to read the terrain yourself, and that's a fundamentally different relationship. One that can't be packaged on an app, one that can't be scaled, one that by its nature cannot be sold. After this, conversations end with a 3-step framework for finding the right mentor, a list of red flags to watch for, and a call to action with an affiliate link. We're not those. Because here's the thing, if you're sitting there right now, maybe late at night, maybe with a dozen browser tabs open to coaching, program sales pages, maybe genuinely unsure whether the investment will pay off, the answer isn't a better framework for evaluating mentorship offers. The answer is that you already know. You already know whether the person you're considering knows your work, your context, your specific kind of stuck. You already know whether they've seen you operate over time, not just over a discovery call. You already know whether they have any real incentive to tell you the truth versus keep you as a client. The problem isn't that you can't evaluate mentorship. The problem is that you've been told your own judgment isn't enough. And that's the industry's real product, like not access, not wisdom, but the lack of your confidence in your own ability to navigate uncertainty. So here's where I want to leave you tonight. Let's reframe the issue at hand. The best mentor you'll ever have is someone who already knows you, not someone who's famous, not someone with a blue check, someone who's seen your work up close, who knows when you're making excuses versus when you're genuinely stuck, who has no financial incentive to tell you anything other than the truth. And if that person doesn't exist in your life right now, the work isn't finding a paid replacement. The work is building the kind of work, the kind of relationships, the kind of reputation that attracts real mentors organically. That's slower. It doesn't come with a money back guarantee, but it's real in a way the paid version cannot be. You don't need to join the mastermind WhatsApp group. You don't need to hire the coach. You don't need to pay $10,000 for access to someone's proven system. What you need is probably closer than you think. Someone who already knows you. Have a fully honest chat with him or her a real conversation you haven't had yet. Discuss a truth you've been avoiding, because admitting it means you have to act on it. The confusion you're feeling right now isn't a signal that you need to buy a gold or diamond mentorship. It's a signal that you're doing something hard enough to be confused by it, and that's not a problem to solve. That's the actual work. Your work. Considering this, let's trust ourselves for a little more, for a little longer, and we'll get farther. That's everything we got tonight. Thank you for listening. Let us know your thoughts on social media, especially if you've had a real mentor, the kind who never charged you $1 and changed your trajectory anyway. Those stories are always worth sharing. I'm Rob Henley, and this is ZilckSound. See you in the next one.
ZilckSound. ZilckSound.